All right, we're taking a look at issue 9. As you see on the cover, we have a shaving horse, this rustic dumbhead style shaving horse holding a piece of a chair in place. Some shavings from that. There's nothing like a good draw knife shaving.
Yeah.
And this article has got some good stuff in it. We've got an article by Simeon von Donkelaar called The Sacred and the Common, Making an Icon Panel. Really beautiful, thoughtful issue about making these painted panels, iconography panels, from starting with the log. And he talks about all the different things that you have to consider for making these panels both beautiful and thoughtfully, and then we have Making the Sussex Chair by Abdullah Nafisi from Great Britain. He went and he made these chairs. Actually, his first one was for a reality TV show, I believe, and then he started making them after that, and he just really enjoys it. And he walks through the whole process of making these chairs that come from the arts and crafts movement. Then we have Steve Voigt wrote for us about the legacy of Caesar Celler, who was an enslaved plane maker. And he talks about, he looks at the evidence and explores how many planes this man made, how skilled he was, how his enslaver actually got the credit for a lot of his work. And it's a really fascinating look at the life of Caesar Celler and at his legacy. Then we have an article that I wrote about dendrochronology. Really fascinating stuff, like how wood stores away information that we're just learning to decipher and unpack. It's not just about counting rings. Then we have our exam. It's an early 1800s New England rocking chair. Very comfortable chair, very beautiful, very functional. It's a fun exam to look over. Then Joshua wrote, as I said, about the shaving horse on the cover. And his article is about iterative design. It's the idea that you make something and see how it feels, and then you might change it. You might alter it based on the function you're looking to get out of it. So it's not only an explanation of how to make this really useful style shaving horse, but how to think about designing and building, not just building to a plan, but changing as your needs change. Then we have Canlyn Frost wrote for us about the skill of John Hemmings, who was a slave of Thomas Jefferson, who did a bunch of work for Jefferson, was an incredibly skilled and gifted man. So this is really unpacking all that he did for Thomas Jefferson on different sites, and how Jefferson held him in awe, really, for his skills and abilities as a craftsman. Then we have Zach Dillinger wrote about shop-made Viking clamps. This is cool. Your shop isn't complete unless it has a Viking clamp or two in it. So he talks about the historicity of these clamps and shows how you can make them in your shop. Super useful. He calls them useful third hand. Then we have David Lane writing for us about replicating some Korean some small ornate Korean boxes. And these are reflections that he had during the pandemic, working at his bench while the world was raging on and all the things going on. And he's really finding solace in the creative place of his workbench. So it's thoughtful, and it's also very beautiful, the work that he did. So again, it's just a loaded table of contents. It's really good content in this issue.
Yeah, and that last one in particular just stands out to me. 2020, we all remember 2020, and David Lane, the sweetness of what he was thinking about at his workbench. It's called sheltering at home, sheltering at the bench. You're sheltered there, but at the same time, there's this call to engage. He talks about this desire to go clean up trash, and during that, and going out and doing it and seeing people. And so his reflections is set up sort of like he has these journal entries as he's building this Korean box, that he's been studying these boxes for a long time. So he's engaging this tradition, this philosophical tradition as well, as he's making the box. And then it's journaling through obviously a really tense time. And so it's a very, very personal piece that ended up with a beautiful box at the end. So David's piece just really stands out to me about this in this issue.
Yeah, and I really like Joshua's article about building the shaving horse, which we have in our shop still. So it's called Iterative Design in Vernacular Work Holding, or A Dumbhead's Guide to Holding Stuff. And I just love that the tongue-in-cheek approach in this article. He talks about like the history of the form of shaving horses, and then walks through how you can go out in the woods and look for, a bent piece of wood to basically source the bends you're needing for these things. And so he builds this shaving horse, and it goes through all the different steps of it. It's about as close as to a step project as you will find in M&T, but it also shows you how to think about, as I said, altering your project as you go. You're not locked into plans. You can change it to meet your needs however you want it. And I find that to be a really free way of thinking about woodworking.
Yeah. So that's really what so much of what M&T is about, is this idea of freedom and engagement and being able to be involved in what you're doing. And that is kind of the unofficial theme of this issue, is this call to engage, especially written, in 2020, David Lane's article, but others sort of reflect this idea of, what is our position to the world, especially as woodworkers? Should we lock our doors and kind of just hole up and do our own thing? Or should we look out and engage the world, engage interesting trees and bring them in and make stuff? And this whole issue is just full of that kind of idea. Even though it's not an intentional theme, the call to engage is pervasive all the way throughout it.